Welcome back, Woods Edge students, to the WESM podcast. This week we're talking about Even If, a sermon series that we started this past Sunday. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, our guest today is Mr. Richard Salazar. Welcome on to the show. Richard, would you tell our students something about you? That's fun.
I thought Landon just invited me here to tell another poop story.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I mean, we all have one,
of
man.
course.
We all
Of
have.
course.
I mean, Jack has no.
Maybe
no
not
poop.
as
Jack has some.
Jack has a lot.
Yeah.
Those are good stories. But no, I applaud Landon on his transparency this weekend. That's a big deal, right?
Yes, of course.
It's all gonna get out there. But no, thanks. I am humbled and honored to be invited to the podcast, as well as the ministry. Obviously, I love being with the kids and hanging out with the staff. So love it. But a little bit about myself. I love Jesus, obviously. I am married to Kim. I think you guys see her running around in the early childcare as well. And then I have 3 daughters that you see running around like crazies on campus. And so we've been with Woods Edge for probably about 8 years now and just love it. As my real job, I guess, I'm an accountant. I can count to 4.
Let's go.
Count to 4 over and over and over again. This last weekend they asked me to count to 6, and we did that over and over again a couple of times too. So yeah.
Nice.
But
Love it. Dang, yeah.
He also is a drummer on tour
right.
Coming up soon, right?
Right. I mean,
all
I
over
wouldn't-
the U.S.
Yeah.
all over the U.S. Yeah, Kim said she's gonna need a nanny if I go on tour. But yeah. I'm passionate about music, and if you want to worship with us in the student building, definitely let us know. We'd love to have you.
For sure.
Go.
Go.
His voice. I'm excited to edit this because I feel like his
sounds
voice
really
sounds,
nice.
You have a podcast voice.
You do.
It's like that deep rasp
Yeah.
that just like sounds really good in your ears. That's what's happening
In the
that mic
world,
right now.
right?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe he'll be a once a month guest. Maybe we can get him on a little rotation, you know?
Hopefully for more than just the sound, but
Yes. Yeah. So this past Sunday, we started a new sermon series called Even If, talking all about even if you've switched schools, even if your home life is going downhill all of a sudden as you're moving into high school and there's all these changes going on in your life, even if those things are taking place, God is still remaining the same. We took a look at Hebrews, specifically Hebrews 13:8, and it says that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And then we looked at David's life as he went from being anointed king to messing up in a pretty big way, but God was with him through every single season of his life. And so I want to open it up to the floor here, gentlemen. A time in your life when something changed that was your doing or a kind of a consequence of someone else's decision that you just kind of bared the result of that. Just a time in your life where something changed, but you saw God work through the change, and you saw God still be the same God that he is through the change.
Mm-hmm. I would like to open the floor to Richard because I feel like I say the exact same story every time. Because when you're saying that, the first thing that goes to my mind is like, oh, team changes at work.
Yeah.
Oh, the story about whenever I was trying to buy my house.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like a broken record. I've ran out of stories.
After Richard
I should do more
After
things.
Richard shares, I think you should just elaborate more on the office or the work changes, because I feel like
that can apply to a lot of different things,
like
I guess, yeah.
it's not just limited to the office. I feel like it's a general consensus of like people that come in your life and then leave, and like we're talking about now, like that's not your decision per se. But like you're still reaping like the whatever that decision made, like those people are gone now in your life. So
Let's do Richard
Yes,
first.
Richard.
Richard.
Oh no,
Do you have any stories?
definitely. You guys might be too young for this. These guys are definitely too young for this. But before cell phones, did y'all ever have a landline? Like the phone that rang at the
Yeah.
house?
Like the little.
Yeah,
Well,
and
that's
know.
a rotary phone.
So-
They did
and if
have
you were well off, you would
buttons.
have more than one line.
I
maybe a phone
had a
upstairs.
home
We definitely
phone
did.
when I grew up. A home phone for like a few years.
Okay.
But whatever.
So with landlines, and then that whole nother discussion is like dial-up internet, like okay, like all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I'm a little older, and so the funny thing is, growing up, we had one landline. So you have one phone. That's the house phone, and we literally did not get this phone until I was in like middle school. And so before then, if people would ask you for your phone number, you'd be like, I don't have a phone. And, they're like, man, if you don't want to give me your phone number, just let me, like it
Yeah.
sounded like a lie, but it's like, no, we don't have a phone. But so got this one landline in like middle school. And the funny thing about a landline is when, especially you're a teenager, it's a phone. We didn't have texting. This is before, probably some households had the internet, but we definitely didn't have the internet. And so whenever you wanted to be on the phone, everybody was fighting for this one line. And I promise you I'm getting to a point. But
I'm intrigued.
but the thing about it is, whenever you started, I dated my wife in high school, and so when we were first dating, I literally had her phone number written in pencil on my wall, like next to the light switch.
Goals.
And so it was literally, okay, we have this one landline. And, even when your parents tell you you're not supposed to be on the phone, you're like trying to wait for them to go to sleep so you can pick up the phone, listen to your parents' kids. But you know what I mean? Like you're trying to sneak back onto the phone, that kind of thing. And so, especially summertime, we just got out of summer. And so I remember there being several times where I would call Kim, and we would be on the phone and we'd be talking, and we don't want to get off the phone because we're in like this like very early stages of our relationship, like no, you hang up, you know what I mean? And so and hopefully somebody, they're teenagers, they can relate to this. And so like I said, there was no text messaging. Now you kind of always feel like you're connected, but there was no text messaging. And we would sit there and we'd talk on the phone, and inadvertently, you'd get busy doing something else. You're doing this other thing over here, and you kind of don't even remember you're on the phone anymore because they're doing their own thing. And then somebody goes, "Hey, you still there?" "Oh, yeah, I'm still here." "Oh, man, this other thing just happened, this and that, and this and that." And so maybe a roundabout way, but, it's one of those, I think, this Sunday you brought up and you just recap that God is always there, even when you're not thinking about him being there. Mm-hmm. Even when you turn your head and you go to walk away to do something else, that is one of those instances that always reminds me of those phone calls, those early phone calls about being giddy. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those, in our faith, I hope that we still have those kind of moments, those giddy moments, like, no, you hang up, mm-hmm. with God. It sounds kind of stupid, for me coming out, but it's mm-hmm. one of those, like, to be like, God is always there. He's always listening to you. So we're called to be praying without ceasing and these things because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, mm-hmm. and he's always there. You started that phone call when you were saved, and you accepted him, mm-hmm. and now he's always on the phone. Mm-hmm. Even when you go, hey, let me put the phone down over here and go to this other room where I'm going to do this thing that I don't want you to be privy to, or, it's like, no. There's no putting the phone down. Like, he's on the line. You have him on the line. Mm-hmm. He's there. He's paying attention to you. He knows you. He's the same. And he's loving you like every day. Mm-hmm. And so he's constantly talking to you and he's being there all the time. So there's the preface for God always being there.
Yes.
A point change in my life, to be transparent, me and my wife dated in high school, and then I moved off to college. And I really felt, and I think, most everybody can relate to this. Moving off to college, I felt like that was my time to be selfish, as odd as it sounds. And it's all hindsight, right? It definitely didn't feel that way doing it.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't even remember my summer before my first year of college. Like, I just feel like I graduated, I took my cap and gown off, and then I like drove away. And I went to school, North Texas, north of Dallas, in Denton, and I was a music major, and so I was so focused on that Kim was still very much like, "Hey, what's going on? Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I really don't have time to be dealing with this relationship right now because I have this thing that I want to do." And once again, I put my relationship with my wife, kind of to the side. Definitely, she felt like she was pushed away. I stopped going to church. Like, it was just genuinely, you're in college, so it's like, the hard thing is the world tells you there's a time and a place for everything, and that's college, right? It's like, hey, you're in the most liberal environment you're ever going to be in your life, and you're going to try things, and the people want you to try things, and maybe you shouldn't try things, and this and that and this and that. And just having such a drastic change as moving away, and that feeling like I can reinvent myself, I can be like the better person, or the cool guy, or whatever you want to do. Fast forward, I mean, it literally took 4 years of college, and then probably about 10 years living in Dallas before I found myself in a hole. And this would have been like 2008. I had a house fire.
Oh, wow.
I had the car in the garage was brand new, that caught fire. The car in the driveway was close enough to the garage that it caught fire. Literally, like, house fire, life fire, that kind of thing. And found myself in an instant in a situation where I was like, well, that all went really sideways really fast. And it wasn't a coincidence. My next door neighbor, literally the house that caught fire, we had only lived there for 2 or 3 weeks. My daughter, Audra, she's 15 now, but for the longest time she thought Swiper from Dora.
Dora.
She's like, Swiper set the house on fire. And I was like, I mean, I guess that's as good as anybody, right? Yeah, I don't
Yeah, for real.
But no, it was one of those, I found myself in that house that catches fire. The next door neighbor is a worship pastor at a local church. And he said, hey, why don't you just come up to the church? So I started spending more and more time at church, and literally God brought me back home in my weakest moment after straying so far away from the flock. Like, I know it's really cliche to be like, I'm the one, I'm the one he left the 99 for.
Yeah.
But it's literally, or like, I'm the prodigal son, right? I have been there. I've been there eating the pig slop when somebody goes like, why are you here eating pig slop when your father is rich and he has everything for you back home? And just so arrogant, so prideful that you don't want to go back home. But then you get halfway there and you realize, oh, he's running to me. Not only was I stupid for not wanting to come back or feeling so arrogant that I couldn't come back, but it's like all of that washes away when you remember that the Father is running to you.
Yep.
You don't have to run at him. And so, long story, I understand, but it's one of those, like, change is unavoidable. There's gonna be change.
Yep.
And the anchor is what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
God is always there, and he's a great Father. He is great and he is good, right? He shows us his greatness, we see his goodness, right? And it's one of those, he will meet us in those dark places. And I, shout out to my 10th grade boys. I tell them this all the time. I said, look, he will meet you in the dark places, but he doesn't want to live with you in those dark places. He wants better for you. He wants to walk you out of those dark places. So I think that's important to note, is that God is constant. God's always on that phone call with you, even when you stray so far off the path that you don't think that there's nothing that can be done. And so, you know, to take it back to that scripture you're talking about this weekend, where David, he understands how much he has sinned.
Yeah.
So much so that he thinks he's going to die. You know, it's one of those, like, I'm at the end of my rope. I have done something so horrible. My father's never going to take me back. I'm dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of those, we all have those moments in our lives. Hopefully not so drastic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely don't want to get Bathsheba pregnant and kill her husband, but you
Yeah,
know, it's one of those,
seriously.
like, you're definitely
You know?
going to make it down a path, you know, that you don't want to, if you're not following his path. You know, he is the way. But I'll back away from the mic now because I just talked for like
No,
45 minutes.
that's great. I mean, it's like you said, like change will happen. And so it's important that we're rooted in Jesus, because the change that takes place will affect you. And so how you respond to that change will ultimately depend on who you're rooted in. Yes. And if you're rooted in Jesus, he'll keep you level through the change, because when change happens, if it's bad, sometimes I want to fix it. I'm like, okay, how can I fix it? And so I lash out in a drastic way when maybe I should just chill and be like, okay, God, like, where do you want me to take this change now? Yeah. Like, this change just happened. So because of that change, what's my next step in my life? And sometimes the answer saying, I don't know, is fine. It's better than trying to...
I think a lot of the times the answer should be, I don't know.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But you do.
Yeah.
And
but that's
let's
not
just
popular.
wait.
That's not.
It's not.
And I mean, I can tell you, I have this conversation at home with the teenager, and not to beat up on her, because I just think it's relatable, is that we are in a time in society where I don't know comes across so weak that nobody wants to say, oh, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. The follow-up is, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't understand what's happening now. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of the teenagers that we get honored to hang out with, they're in that environment every day. So it's, I don't know what's happening right now, and I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm so anxious about this next step that I'm just going to freeze right here for a second. And you can't allow that to overcome you. It's exactly what Jack just said, is I don't know, but he does. You know, there's so much talk about truth right now everywhere, even in the world. But the issue is, you hear people going, well, my truth, my truth. And but if I have a truth, and you have a truth, and you have a truth, and they're not all the same thing, that's not the truth. That's an opinion, or it's a perspective. And so there's only one truth, and he is the truth, and he's the Alpha and the Omega, and he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that's the truth, right? Yep. And so we can't know what's going to happen, and we can't know everything. There's no, what fun would that be?
Yeah.
You know?
Seriously. Yeah. You can share your story or your Office Friends thing now that we're back.
The Office?
No.
Or Friends? Which TV series?
Right.
Office Friends.
I don't know
I wanna be Dwight.
What character would you be if you were in the office, Jack?
What character would I be?
I feel like
Creed?
yes. I was gonna say like
100%.
Dwight, but like you're not. Like you're like a mixture of Dwight and someone
Because
else.
I farm. Because I'm a farmer.
No, I didn't think about that. I didn't even
Because
think about
I'm
that.
a legit 100% bona fide farmer.
If you, okay. I mean, you don't. If you were Dwight in the office, bro, that'd make it tough for me. Because he'd be like, hey, bro, hey, guess what? My farm. You gonna come to my farm?
I beats.
And then like I'd come over and it'd be like just as weird as Dwight's farm is in the office. Like your cousin's like out in the field working.
Jack's like running after the
working
car.
at like 2 years old, like mowing, like what?
Selling exotic meats.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Office.
Wow.
Jack loses friends in The Office
Yeah,
sometimes. So here,
okay.
yeah, that's our segue.
I don't remember. There was something that like it was like a really good segue, and then I forgot what it was, because my brain does that. Um,
I like your hat though.
the Texas flag, or
Yeah, yeah, and it's like
It-
patchable,
it
you
doesn't
know.
say it is. Watch this. Watch this.
That has to sound great. It's gratifying.
I know.
I have a one of a kind authentic Jared patch as well.
Coming soon, or already here.
Well, Jared has that patch.
Yeah.
No. He gave it to me.
Aw,
Yeah.
That's nice.
that's so cute.
What a guy.
All right,
Okay.
do you remember your thought now? I tried to distract you for a second.
Yeah, I
and-
know. Office
okay.
friends.
Yeah.
Change, not knowing, and then you were talking about how like our response in that change, and how our response should be, and it depends on who you're rooted in, and like where you have your trust. Is it in yourself or is it in God? So I'll go back to like the first time there was an office transition. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Because I feel like that one was probably the hardest, because that was the first time I had to completely like release and let go and be like, okay, God, like I know that I don't have control over the situation at all. It wasn't my choice that he left. It wasn't like I couldn't do anything to stop it. I couldn't do anything to change it. And it's like the feeling of completely losing what you thought you had control over is like you feel helpless. And I think in feeling helpless is when you can make really bad decisions. So the old storyteller, it's a like a videography position at our church. He was the one who was like the main videographer for the whole church whenever I first came on. And we grew really close. I was like his assistant, his helper. Like I just did all the stuff with him.
Assistant to the.
Assistant to the
Uh-huh.
Woods Edge videographer.
Nice.
But I don't know, he was like a mentor to me. Like he was very spiritually mature. He was incredibly talented in his gift, a gift that like I also shared a passion for. So he showed me the ins and outs of everything. He taught me so much in the world of videography, but also just like how to be generally a good person.
Fair.
And he got an offer at another church in Houston, and it was like a huge deal for him. And he left. He went to the other church, and at the time when that happened, it was like I was like, this team isn't gonna work anymore. Like it's gonna fall apart. Like he felt like kind of the glue that held the team together. He felt like the thing that maybe was like pushing that team forward, because we technically didn't have like an actual boss at that time. It was he sort of led the team without, I don't know, complicated.
Team captain. type
Team
thing.
captain.
Yeah.
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 So it was like, and I was kind of fresh on the team too, but like in a short period of time I had like grown super close to him, and he left, and like it was just, I was just like he was the one that I was like closest to, and the whole staff. Like I'm a very generally closed off person. I have a hard time starting conversations with people I don't know. And so him leaving was like, oh my gosh, like that one thing that like kind of made me comfortable around other people is gone. I like, now I'm the only person that really knows anything about video. So like people are gonna be coming to me for things, and like, yeah, it was scary because I lost that like, I don't know how to, like that the safety net, I guess, like having someone that I can like rely on to help me in social situations, but also move me forward in my like the skill set that I'm wanting to push forward in. Um, but then on the other hand, like he was like a really good friend and a mentor, and he left, and I'm like, I went through like all the stages of grief multiple times.
Nice.
Trying to think of how to like loop it back. I guess I'll just keep talking and eventually I'll get there.
That's fair.
That works.
Yeah.
I felt hurt by it because not because I wanted someone to blame. So they're like the guilt for what happened shifted from person to person depending on what stage of grief I was in. But I had like a lot of emotions that I was feeling, and the old student pastor was also like somebody that I was close with at the time. So like I would talk to him just about like the way that I was feeling. So it kind of like he helped me process some of this stuff, but I didn't want to be there anymore. Like the fact that he left was enough to make me feel like I just don't want to be here. And it wasn't me being like, I don't like photography, I don't like videography anymore. It wasn't me being like, I don't like the church anymore. It was literally just like, I lost that like really close connection. So now going there isn't the same, and I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather just start over somewhere else. And just through processing it with God and through processing it with Justin and just by myself, it was like the first time I ever did anything right in grieving.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I kept hearing from God was just wait. And I didn't want to just wait. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to just like let things unfold the way that he wants them to unfold. I wanted to grab control and make a decision myself so that I could move through what was going on. But I listened and I just waited. And I didn't make any decisions while I was in the process of like grieving that loss. And it sounds dramatic, but like once you have to be in a situation to like saying it now out of that situation, I'm like, dude, chill. It's not a big deal. But in it, like I like remember crying a lot. Like it was hard. It was
It
really
probably
hard.
felt long.
It did.
while
It
you were
felt
in it.
really long.
Yeah.
But like I waited, and that kind of situation has happened multiple times since I've been on staff here, and like whether it's people like moving to another church or moving to like a completely different industry, or starting their own church, like it's really hard when that thing that confession time, when that thing that maybe you put in the place where God should have been is gone, because God won't leave. It's putting someone on a pedestal and maybe idolizing them, that like we're all human and humans make mistakes and God doesn't. So when you put someone somewhere that God should be, a person that can make mistakes, that leaves you extremely vulnerable. And God has been really gracious to me, and I haven't made any dumb decisions whenever I put someone in that position. But just being someone who is still maturing mentally, so like a high schooler or junior high or young adult, and I still feel like people older, like you probably are still evolving mentally. I would assume.
100%. I hope so. You know what I mean? Like if I'm done, there's problems. Like I have problems, man. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's there's that constant landline that's always open. He's always there, and he's ready for you to put him back in the center. Ready for me to put him back in the center. But it's been hard. Like I feel like every time something like that happens, it's like a wake up of like, oh dang, maybe you weren't where you were supposed to be. Like recentering my focus on God. Yeah.
I mean, that's a good story. I think that I would say don't beat yourself up on that, even in retrospect, because look at the disciples, right? That's the story. Jesus goes away. They see him die on the cross, and the next day they're like, "Psh,
Yeah.
well, what was that about?"
Yep.
Like, dude, you were like the
Yeah.
dude. You were the guy. We were supposed to overtake Rome, and then Peter looks at everybody and goes, "Let's go back to fishing." And they went back and they made that drastic decision like the next day. Like, I'm not going to wait. There's
Yeah.
nothing to wait for. There's nothing to wait for. He's gone. You know what I mean? He said we were going to do this, even though he told them numerous times exactly what was
lot of
going to
times,
happen.
yeah.
And they just didn't get it. But I think that's for me to be like, look, you don't understand what's going on, but look, these other guys didn't understand what was going on either.
Yeah.
And they were there. But it's one of those, don't make that. I think that's a good takeaway as well. Like, don't make that drastic decision. Just wait a second.
Just wait.
You brought up Abraham this
Yep.
last weekend, and that's another just wait, right?
Yeah.
You talk about Abraham. I'm going to make your descendants more than, more. You're going to have more sons than the stars, that kind of thing. And a lot of people look at the time when Israel was in slavery, and they go, "Oh man, those really bad times." It was. But if you look at the Old Testament and you see how they increased, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't have the numbers down next to me, but in Numbers, it actually tells us that they increased from like a nation of like, I don't know, 400,000 or something like that to like 2 million during that time of slavery. So even when you don't think he is working, he is working. And he's telling them, hey, just wait. And kind of that whole period, that whole thing, like, just wait. Well, hold on, we're slaves. Like, this is a horrible situation, God. And he's like, yeah, I'm doing this thing right now. You just got to chill out. Yeah.
Yeah. God will always work in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
And you can look back on it and be like, oh, that's what you were doing when I was feeling that way. And like,
Oh.
wow, like, you know what you're doing.
Hindsight
bud.
is fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Always.
We're 4 minutes over. Do you have any last quick notes that we want to hit before we close out? Or
I'll just say, like, as a human, it's so easy to slip and put something or someone in the place of God because we're visual. We like I see Jack every single day. I talk to Jack every single day, and I can put a face to his voice, all that stuff. And then with God, like, you don't know his face. You don't necessarily know exactly what he sounds like. I believe he speaks to us in personal ways, but in terms of like an audible voice, like, I don't know what he sounds like.
Like this.
Well, thunder, yeah. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. That's how our brains work, and so throughout the day, it's important to keep the conversation going. Like, a relationship with God isn't a morning prayer, a night prayer, and a meal prayer. It's an ongoing, like, hey God, just got done with the podcast. I hope you can use this to speak to our students. It's, hey God, I just got done working on the questions for groups this week, like whatever, like he cares about every little detail in your life. And it's honestly foolish not to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
Because like, if we're rooted in him, he wants to hear us, he wants to listen to us, and he's the best friend you will ever have because he never puts the phone down.
Yeah.
100%.
And it also makes change much easier.
Yeah.
Whenever you keep the conversation going, change, whether it's a good change or a bad change, you can walk through it with more faith, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah.
Well,
Because you don't know where the change is leading. You don't, but you have faith. You have faith that God is good. You have faith that God is walking you through it. And so it's kind of like you get to release that need for control and just kind of like sit back and be like, all right, like,
yeah.
you can, Jesus, take the
Well,
wheel.
I think Jeff Wells says it really well when he says, God is still on the throne. Even when something happens to you, the king is still on his throne and everything is coming across his desk. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
One last thing, and I'll end it. One of the healthiest perspectives and prayers I can pray, or I've prayed before, is like, God, I'm honest. I want this to happen. This is what I want to happen in this situation. But even if that doesn't happen, let your will be done. That's it. Obviously, God is in control, but just honestly praying that prayer, like, okay, God, this is what I want to happen. I'm talking to you. But no matter what happens in this situation, I ultimately trust you. And I know that you will be there no matter what happens in the situation. And that's a great perspective that I think we can all have.
yeah.
Amen.
So, yeah, amen. All right, guys, that is it for this episode, even if week 1, Richard, thank you so much, man.
Thanks
like,
for
real,
having
this
me.
was
Round of
awesome.
applause for Richard,
This was an
please.
awesome podcast. Like us on Spotify. Hit the bell on Spotify. Hit the bell on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Apple Podcast is also a thing. Google Podcasts.
And apparently Koala.
Anchor.fm.
That koala?
Jack, still a farmer. Have a great week. Peace. Yay!